Yeah, let's go ahead and kickstart it with the polling. I was happy to see that this is the direction that things were going. A lot of people will immediately poo-poo it and say that, oh, it's not enough, or like, oh, it's not a big enough stride. Still, the number one response when I talk to somebody about Marianne Williamson, if I bring her up, their next question is, who is that? Right? There's still a lot of ground to cover. Everybody knows who Joe Biden is, and by and large, they don't like him, right? Surely he doesn't inspire them to get out of bed and support him. A lot of people don't know Marianne Williamson. A lot of people don't know what her policy is, and unfortunately, for the most part, if they do, they think they kind of bought into the mainstream media rhetoric about her. Even some people that I'm like friends with, every once in a while, they'll be like, bro, what's your deal with that lady? Doesn't she like fucking hate gay people? And I'm like, no, this is like bad internet slander. Like, what the hell is going on? And it reminds me, like, isn't Bernie Sanders a misogynist? It's like, no, they just have to have something that they can brand somebody that wants to give people fucking healthcare that's bad, right? They will do anything to twist your words into making you seem bad. I'm like, I know your politics. I know you are a progressive at heart. You need to fucking like check yourself about this, you know? But that just means she's got a lot of ample opportunity, a lot of runway to get her name out there and to grow her support. And it does look like that, she's come back with about 10% of the people responding. 1 out of 10, not bad. For, again, being a candidate that's still really trying to get their name out. We still have over a year until the actual 2024 presidential election. You know, there's a lot of time for her to get her name out there, to make up that ground. If it's going to happen, this is how it would start, right? Bernie Sanders didn't start out at fucking 50% next to Hillary Clinton, right? He started out way less than that, but the movement kept building. The message got out. What we have on our side is the fact that our ideas are popular, right? Even though all of our candidates are never popular, they get marginalized. They don't get the fucking boost that, you know, a Buttigieg boost or a Kamala Harris boost or whatever. They're never going to get the fawning pageantry and the like Democratic Party trying to test the waters to see if that's the guy that they're going to have to get behind. You know what I mean? There is none of that when it comes to lefty candidates. So they have to do it the hard way. They have to, in spite of all of the demonizing rhetoric, in spite of the hateful smears, they have to kind of soldier on anyway and make their own name, build their own reputation. 10% is not bad on that scale.
Oh, yeah, it's not bad at all. And I think it's hilarious, Zach, that you brought up the fact that the media has tried so hard to smear her as like anti-gay and tried to make it seem like she has issues with the LGBT community. I will reiterate again, I have never known a candidate to have such a strong and fervent base of support from the LGBT community. Like, I swear to God, 75% of the Marianne supporters that I know or interact with on Twitter are gay. They love her. The gays love Marianne. So it's hilarious that the media has tried so hard to go with that smear when the facts of the matter, just if you look at her base of supporters, it couldn't paint a more opposite picture of who she is, the campaign she's built, and the movement behind her. But yeah, let's take a look at this poll from, I think it's called Echelon. Yeah, right here. If the 2024 presidential primaries were being held today and you had to make a choice, for whom would you vote? That's a well-worded question. Sometimes they word questions very tricky on polls for whatever reasons, but this is a well-worded question. I approve of Echelon polling, guys. They say Joe Biden definitely at 40, or sorry, this poll is confusing actually. Joe Biden definitely probably 73%. Marianne Williamson definitely / probably 10%. Hey, that's double digits. That's double digits. And like I said at the beginning of the show, we have been covering Marianne Williamson's candidacy since before she even officially announced. And we've also been monitoring and covering some various other commentators on the left and their reactions to Marianne's announcement. And one thing I've seen a lot of that I wasn't a fan of and that I'm not a fan of is the smugness with which people talk about this and the kind of condescension. Oh, she won't get more than 2%. You know, she won't get more than 2%. Like, this is a complete waste of time. Don't even bother engaging with this fantasy of Marianne Williamson running for president. She won't even get 5%. Well, she's actually already at 10 fucking percent. So save me that bullshit going forward. And let's actually unite as a left-wing independent media in order to propel her candidacy and in order to advocate for her ideas and platforms and educate the people and let them know there is an alternative to Joe Biden. We don't have to just fucking vote for the lesser of two evils every time. We can actually make Marianne Williamson the the candidate, the nominee, if we try hard enough and if we advocate on her behalf, just like with what happened in 2016 and Bernie Sanders, as the Burn Identity pointed out on Twitter. For those assuming that Marianne Williamson has no chance of polling higher, back in 2015, 1 month after Bernie Sanders announced he was running for president of the United States, in a CNN poll, Clinton was at 60% and Bernie was at 10%. Marianne at 10% this early is significant. And that's so true and so important, because I don't know if you guys remember, I don't know when all of you guys started paying attention to politics, but I specifically remember in the lead up to the 2016 presidential election, everyone just thought it was a given that Hillary Clinton would be the nominee. I've said this before because people say, oh, Joe Biden is impossible to defeat because he's an incumbent president. He's an incumbent president. Therefore, any primary challenge is basically just a performative stunt. It's not to be taken seriously. Well, let me tell you guys, when the DNC basically tried to coronate Hillary Clinton in 2016, they ran that primary as if Hillary was the incumbent president. They basically ran that primary as if it wasn't even a primary and that they were just giving the nomination to Hillary Clinton. Every candidate was ordered to get the fuck out of her way, including Joe Biden, who was just VP. Joe Biden wanted to run for president in 2016 after being vice president for 8 years. You know, it should have been his turn, if anything. If the DNC was going to fucking coronate anyone, it should have been Joe Biden, right? He was just VP for 8 years. And he also probably would have had a much better chance of defeating Trump. Ultimately, Hillary fumbled that, as you guys remember. But the point is, they were basically running that campaign, or that primary rather, as if Hillary was the incumbent. In the same way now, Joe Biden is the incumbent. And of course, once again, they're running the primary like there is no primary. Like it's just a long, drawn out, glorified coronation for Joe Biden. But just like in 2016, there is a challenger. Someone was brave enough to, say, hey, this is bullshit. We're not just going to accept the coronated candidate. We're not just going to accept who you decide to shove down our throat. And in that case, it was Bernie Sanders, who came out of the gate with absolutely 0% in the polling. And this time around, it's Marianne Williamson, who similarly came out of the gate very low in the polling, single digits. But here we are 1 month later, exactly 1 month. And we're seeing a replication of what happened with Bernie Sanders, which is, at first, no one took him seriously. No one took Bernie Sanders seriously at first. I even remember on TYT, the channel which ultimately became the most pro-Bernie channel on YouTube. Like, that was their whole brand throughout the Bernie Sanders era. But even TYT, when they initially covered Bernie Sanders jumping into the primary race against Hillary Clinton, they said, oh, this is, we like Bernie. Obviously, we agree with his policies, but don't kid yourself, guys. This ain't going anywhere. This is totally just kind of a performative stunt to try to push the Democrats left. But like, Bernie's not in this seriously. He doesn't think he has any chance of winning. No one actually thinks this is a real presidential campaign. It's kind of just, a stunt, right? That's what everyone was saying about Bernie Sanders, including the fucking Young Turks. How did that go? Bernie Sanders built an incredible movement behind him, inspired the biggest progressive movement in my lifetime, arguably in modern American history. And obviously, unfortunately, he didn't make it. But the point is, at first, no one took him seriously. No one took him seriously. And the mirrors of that with Marianne Williamson, a candidate that also no one is taking seriously. No one did take seriously. But now polling is suggesting that at least some momentum is catching on among the general electorate, among the Democratic Party voter base.
Yeah, let's be clear. She still has a massive uphill battle, right? Like, I still think that it's the fact that we haven't even gotten to get into all the cheating that the Democrats will do if, she does start to build like a massive coalition around her in the Democratic primary. Like, of course, they'll start rigging it. Of course, there will be all of that to grapple with. But I think if you go and look, and if we pull up that Echelon Insights poll, I don't know if you still have it, but if you guys remember, it had a pretty big gap on people who were potentially voting. Yeah, so Joe Biden probably 28%, right? And unsure 17%. So that is 45% of the electorate that is up for grabs, right? Marianne probably needs to get just about damn all of it. Just about damn all of it. Right? Because the race is thin and there's only two individuals that are basically running. And this is a nice parallel to 2016 because the only other scrub that was really like included on these early on, at least, was we saw Martin O'Malley. Shout out to Martin O'Malley, fucking dog shit person. Horrible. Maryland. I think he was governor of Maryland. I read he was horrible on crime. Like he would like not let guys out of prison that were, very much should be let out of prison because Baltimore puts way too many people in jail, etc. And he would like always stand on the neck of those guys, keep them down, etc. Fuck Martin O'Malley. Who was the other guy? There was the other guy that was like a Republican. Lincoln Chafee. There we go. I was like, what the fuck is that guy's name? I can see his in my head. I remember those were not stiff competition for Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton would have blown by those guys in a landslide in the Democratic Party. It took a guy with an alternate message. So I just bring that up to say that I think Joe Manchin could become a Lincoln Chafee or a fucking Martin O'Malley in this race, but it's mostly irrelevant. And the only good it would do would be peeling away from Joe Biden. There's no guy that is out there or woman or person or whatever the fuck, right? That's going to be like, you know what? I'm leaning towards Marianne unless Joe Manchin decides to get in the race, right? Which is why I think we might not see a guy like Joe Manchin get in the race, because if Marianne wasn't in this race, it would make perfect sense for Joe Biden to have a guy, in that Martin O'Malley, Lincoln Chafee role, right? Let's use, whomever. Kristen Sinema could do it also, even though she kind of left the Democratic Party, but she could even be like, I'm doing like what Bernie Sanders did, but just from like the right-wing corporatist shill perspective, right? And they would be there to shift the Overton window to the right, to the corporate side. And that would be beneficial to Joe Biden because those people would drop out. He would give them a cabinet position, and then their voters would support him before like the important days of the primary, before Super Tuesday, before any of that. Like they've all dropped out and endorsed Joe Biden. So that's all well and good. It makes it seem like Joe Biden is to the left of where he is, and then he'll just go back with his governance business as usual. Now that Marianne Williamson is in the race, it makes it harder for them to pull off that shtick because the longer those guys are in the race, the more support they're taking away from Joe Biden. So Joe Biden needs to hold on to that 46% of definitely voting for Joe Biden. And that is a big number. I think it's probably a little stiff. I think if people saw Marianne Williamson get to somewhere like 28-30% in one of those polls, they would be like, okay, shit. Like now it's a race, right? Now it's a fucking primary. We need to run this campaign. Again, if Marianne Williamson can scale her staff, her volunteers, get on the ground infrastructure in play, which was something that Bernie Sanders was massively effective at doing. That will convince people that there's a real chance here, and then people will quit with the, oh well, you guys are just burning energy and fucking, we could be doing this to, I don't know, protest the police, which doesn't work, protest for healthcare, which doesn't work. Like, take your pick of things that don't fucking work. You could be spending your afternoons doing that. Anyway, so that's what I think is really interesting about this. The fact that the more she does increase in the polls like this, the more serious other people take her. And when there are so many more people who have political alignment with Marianne Williamson than Joe Biden, I think that that's without a doubt true in this country. That's why it's so much soft support for Joe Biden, and it's a stronger support, I would imagine, from Marianne Williamson. You're not going to peel those votes away once she gets them, because people will understand, hey, if you want healthcare, if you want a Green New Deal, if you don't want your fucking children to die in an ecocide, maybe you should support the person that actually believes in accomplishing that.
Oh, 100%, Zach, 100%. And also, I wanted to contrast this news with Bill Weld's failed presidential challenge against Donald Trump. Do you guys remember Bill Weld? In the same way that Marianne Williamson is challenging Joe Biden, the incumbent Democratic president and assumed nominee, Bill Weld actually was the only Republican who stepped up to challenge Donald Trump in 2020 when he was running for re-election. And like I said, Bill Weld, former Massachusetts governor, he was the only he was basically the only challenger Donald Trump had. And unlike Marianne Williamson, the media actually took Bill Weld seriously to a pretty large and pretty hilarious extent, given the fact that he never had any base, any movement behind him. And I honestly don't think that Bill Weld ever rose above like 2 or 3% in the polls as far as the Republican primary went. I remember looking at like 538 and all the polling websites, and I just always laughed because it was like Donald Trump fucking 90%, and then Bill Weld like 1% within the Republican Party. electorate, right? That dude never caught on, despite the fact that the liberal media and the anti-Trump media, like Fox, even some people on Fox News, really did take Bill Weld seriously and tried to present him as a serious, challenge to Donald Trump, saying like, "Hey guys, this is a former governor, former Massachusetts governor, Bill Weld. He's really serious. Maybe he'll, be able to coalesce a movement of anti-Trumpers and never Trumpers and disaffected Democrats, and maybe he can actually seriously take on Trump." Like I said, this dude never got above 2%.
He gave the old Deval pat.
Oh God, I always forget about Deval Patrick until someone reminds me. Kind of like that Lincoln Chafee guys. Oh yeah, that guy, Lincoln Chafee. What a character. Anyway, Marianne Williamson's only been in this race for a fucking month, has been not treated seriously by the media, has been consistently smeared by the mainstream media and the establishment. And here she is with 10%. That has to, and you guys can double check me. Maybe Bill Weld got to like 5% or something. Maybe he did. I can't find any polls of him above like fucking 2%. But here's Marianne Williamson, just a month into her campaign, already at double digits. Now, obviously, this is just one poll. We'll have to see going forward if this just turns out to be an outlier. We'll see, right? But I think it's pretty fucking impressive to be in this race for a month, and you're at 10% against the incumbent president, Joe Biden, vice president of Barack Obama, one of the most widely known figures in all of American politics, whether you love him, hate him, or are somewhere in between. Everyone knows who the fuck Joe Biden is. And the fact that Marianne Williamson, an outsider with no political experience, who's running this ragtag insurgent campaign, the fact that she's able to get double digits, I think is very impressive. And obviously all the caveats still apply. This is an uphill battle, yada, yada, yada. But let's not undermine how important this is. Let's not undermine how much of an achievement this is to get double digits against Joe Biden this early on in the race. I'm excited.